India said it will go ahead with talks with Pakistan, even though it's still reeling from yet another deadly bombing in the west of the country. But will trust building between the two countries survive this latest attack? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Huda Abdelhamid. Talks between India and Pakistan will go ahead despite the weekend's bombing in the city of Pune in western India. India has been put on high alert, but both governments have been quick to condemn the attack and have urged the public not to jump to conclusions about who was behind it. A bomb was reportedly left in a backpack in a bakery popular with tourists near two luxury hotels and religious sites. 9 people were killed and at least 57 others were injured. The explosion happened one day after India and Pakistan announced plans to restart talks on February 25th. India's opposition party is calling for the meeting to be cancelled in the wake of the bombing, but the government said it would not take any decision before seeing investigation reports. If it goes ahead, it will be the first high-level meeting between the two countries since the Mumbai attacks in 2008. Relations between India and Pakistan have been fraught since partition in 1947. Several key issues between the two still remain unresolved. Both countries have nuclear weapons, and that's raised concern both regionally and internationally. India and Pakistan began formal talks in 2004. Shortly after, a hotline was set up between the two countries' foreign ministers to help prevent nuclear war. But there's also the ongoing Kashmir dispute. Several wars were fought over the region. And lately, the two countries' growing involvement in Pakistan has made both India and Pakistan suspicious of each other's motives. After the Mumbai bombings in 2008, India blamed a militant group based in Pakistan and severed its diplomatic ties. Over the past year, India has accused Pakistan of not cooperating enough over the investigation, but Islamabad has charged several people in connection with the attacks. Before the latest talks were announced, relations have been slowly warming up, with India's Home Minister scheduled to visit Pakistan later this month. Well, joining our discussions today are our guests in New Delhi, General Ashok Mehta, retired Army General and analyst at the Institute for Defence Studies, and also in New Delhi, Arati Jirath, a political analyst and columnist, and in Islamabad, Akram Zaki, former senator and former foreign secretary of Pakistan. Gentlemen and ladies, also welcome to the program. General Mehta, let me start with you. Is the timing of this bombing designed to drive yet another wedge between India and Pakistan?
Well, it would seem so, that just when the two foreign secretaries were slated to meet on 25th of February in Delhi, and the announcement for that meeting had been made in the first week of February. We heard from Islamabad that the Jamaat-ud-Dawa, that is the front now for the Lashkar-e-Taiba, which is the terrorist group that was involved in the Mumbai bombing. They held a rally in Islamabad, and during the course of this rally, their number 2 leader, a gentleman called Abdul Rahman Makki, threatened to wage a war against India, a very inflammatory speech accusing India, besides the jihad in Kashmir, also of stopping water supply to Pakistan. And because of that, he said that they would wage this war, take the war into India in places like, and he mentioned Kanpur, Delhi and Pune. And Pune was mentioned sometime on the 5th of February, and as you know, the attack took place on Saturday, 13th of February. So although there is a linkage between what was said and the bombing, it is not clear whether the improvised explosive device, which was used in the German bakery with great sophistication and a deadly effect, was the handiwork of the Jamaat-ud-Dawa. It is possible that a local organization linked to the Jamaat-ud-Dawa stroke the Lashkar-e-Taiba, this Indian Mujahideen could have carried out the attack. The Lashkar-e-Taiba is known to outsource some of their operations to local groups in India, and this local group has sleeper cells right across many places in India. So it's quite possible that the operation was a joint operation but executed by a local group. The second thing is about...
Okay, well, I just want to bring also Mr. Akram Zaki. I just want to know whether the view from Islamabad is the same, that maybe the timing of this latest bombing was an attempt really to halt again, may I say, these talks that have been stalled now for nearly 15 months.
Well, it's very unfortunate that while both India and Pakistan are victims of terrorism on a large scale, there is a tendency to blame each other, and this tendency is more pronounced in India. When anything happens, they immediately point fingers without looking into the evidence. At least this time, the Home Minister has been a little cautious. He has said, till the investigation is complete, we will not decide about whether to proceed with the talks or not.
Okay.
I think it is in the interest of both India and Pakistan to resume the dialogue, because two nuclear powers cannot afford a policy of mutual confrontation. It is disastrous for both countries. So in 2005, there was an agreement that terrorism will not be allowed to derail the talks. In Sharm el-Sheikh also there was an understanding that terrorism will not be linked to the resumption of dialogue. But unfortunately, this promise remains unfulfilled, and this is really a success for those who are committing terrorism, that if they have a motive to stop the normalization, we should not play into their hands. We should proceed with the talks.
Okay, Arati Jarash, could you just explain to us this point that Akram Zaki was making, that maybe this time the leadership in India had a much more measured tone when pointing the finger at Pakistan? Has something changed? Is there a realization that maybe both countries at the moment are battling against the same enemies?
Well, I'll say one thing. When the Mumbai attack happened in 2008, firstly, the scale of that attack was really horrific. It was, one of the most horrific attacks in recent years. And I think, the whole nation was so shocked that it was going to be very difficult for India and Pakistan to continue talking in that kind of atmosphere. And at that point, the government very clearly said that the dialogue was paused. They did not say that they stopped the dialogue or that they would never go back to the dialogue table again. They only said that dialogue was paused. And then, of course, the Indian elections came in, and, so there was, at that point of time, the government was looking inwards. So there was no question of, resuming the dialogue with Pakistan. I think there was always an understanding that once the elections are over, India and Pakistan would have to get back to talking, because, the fact is that we are neighbors. You cannot have a situation where two neighbors, with so many outstanding issues and disputes, that two neighbors don't talk. So I think it was really a matter of time when the talks would resume. And if at all these terrorist groups are trying to disrupt the dialogue with this attack in Pune, I think they've completely miscalculated. The mood in Pakistan, of course, Pakistan has been pressing for talks for a long time, but the mood in India certainly is also to have a dialogue with Pakistan. I mean, the perspective, the modalities, the issues, there may be differences on those. I think for India, terrorism is the most important issue, and we would like that on top of the agenda. For Pakistan, obviously, Kashmir is the, top of the agenda issue. So, those little modalities would have to be sorted out. But I think the national mood is very clearly for dialogue today.
Okay, General Ashok Mehta, you were saying earlier that there were some warning signs, at least in that rally last week in Pakistan, and then certainly the U.S. Secretary Robert Gates had given the Indian leadership some warning that there could be an attack either in Mumbai or Pune. So how do you explain that the security was so minimal, really, at a tourist place where which is usually one of the main kind of targets?
Well, I think the government of Maharashtra has accepted that there was a security failure. They do not admit, or the central government, the Home Minister does not admit that this was an intelligence lapse. He does say that a bomb was planted or just an improvised explosive device was left in a cafe. But the fact is that these cafes had been instructed by the Maharashtra government to put metal detectors. And having issued those instructions, the Maharashtra government did not go ahead to ensure that these were implemented. This is the bane, one of the biggest problems in India, that you have a number of sound plans, you have a number of sound ideas, but none of these gets implemented on the ground. So the failure to prevent this attack or to minimize the damage, for example, if this bag had just been left where it was an unattended bag, and they had called the police or the bomb disposal squad, the bomb might not have gone off. So it was a failure of security, of awareness amongst the people, of some of these measures being implemented on the ground. But I want to make a separate point, and the separate point relates to the fact that for the last 15 months or 14 months, there hasn't been a single attack in India, not a local attack, not one sourced from outside the country. Now, that could not have come about without Pakistan's cooperation. I think the government of Pakistan has certainly kept its hand on some of these terrorist groups, especially the Lashkar-e-Taiba, which targets India. And also, I do believe that the United States has also been prodding Pakistan to make sure that this kind of a thing doesn't happen. So I believe that what we are seeing now is no direct attack sourced from Pakistan, but these suboptimal attacks, whereas my colleague Aarti Jairath said there is no WMD kind of effect, no mass casualties like in Mumbai. It's a small-scale attack, and so this is the new phenomenon that you're watching.
Okay, General Mehta, let's just remind our viewers of the chronology of the major attacks that took place on Indian soil since 2001. In December 2001, a suicide squad attempts to storm the Parliament House in New Delhi. The Indian government blames two Pakistani-based groups for the attacks, the Lashkar-e-Taiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed. Delhi demanded strong action against them by Pakistan. Then, in 2006, a series of high-powered blasts on suburban trains in Mumbai killed 187 commuters and left 800 others injured. India promptly froze peace talks with Pakistan. 2 years later, in 2008, 8 blasts tear through the tourist city of Jaipur, killing 65 and injuring 150. A group calling itself the Indian Mujahideen claimed responsibility. That same year, Mumbai was again the scene of a coordinated attack. This time, different locations were targeted across the city, killing 166 people. India blamed Pakistan-based militant and suspended peace talks with Islamabad. Akram Zaki, assuming that the next round of talks will go ahead on February 25th, where should be the starting point at this point?
Well, you have enumerated a number of attacks, and you have perhaps not cared to mention that an Indian colonel was involved in the attack on the Samjhota Express, and he was being investigated, and the man who was investigating him was the first target and killed in Bombay incident. So these are complicated matters, and we have to look into what else goes on beyond blaming Pakistan. There must have been a lot of local Indian collaborators who were involved. I think we should go beyond blame game and move seriously with the dialogue, because there is no alternative to dialogue. The two countries cannot afford to go to a war. They are both nuclear powers. They are both poor countries. They need to devote their resources to development. So if they act responsibly, terrorism a common problem. Pakistan has lost more people in terrorism than any other country. And therefore, Pakistan is not recognized as a victim of terrorism. I think we should, now that we have taken the initiative and softened a little bit, let the foreign secretaries have the initial meeting and prepare for better opportunities for more political level meetings.
Arati Jarash, you were saying that there is a realization that talks are really the only way out between the two countries. Is there also a realization really that maybe these groups, whether they're the Indian Mujahideen or the Lashkar-e-Taiba or any other group, have no real boundaries, and at this point the problem has become a cross-border issue that is common to both countries?
Yes, I think there is that realization, but you know, I think the Indian position is that the source lies in Pakistan. And you know, I think this is the point that the government of India has been stressing to you know, its Western interlocutors, that you know, we need to cut off the source, which is in Pakistan. It's this source that is feeding the groups in India, funding them, giving them resources, giving them training,
our people
and
believe
so on.
that the source of trouble in Balochistan and in Fatah lies in the Indian presence in Afghanistan, who are training and financing and sending those people. So if we go into that, then it is a different story. I think
exactly.
Let the
so that's why I think the point
meet.
really is, that India and Pakistan need to sit across the table and talk to each other. There's really no point, as you know, as you said, there's
That's
really
what
no
I'm
point
saying.
in having this blame game.
So, General Mehta,
even if we want to,
yeah, but the fact,
even if we want to blame each other, let's exchange our notes in the meetings.
No, Mr. Zaki, it's not a matter of blaming each other. It's a matter of stating facts. The Director of National
That our Prime Minister at Sharm el Sheikh told your Prime Minister, he gave you the dossier on your involvement in Balochistan, and you backed out of that.
No, I beg your, there is no dossier that has been presented. Mr. Zaki, the fact of the matter is that last week...
And it was mentioned in the communique by your Prime Minister that the Balochistan question was raised and it will be discussed.
Yeah, so...
India backtracks on every agreement.
We have not backtracked. The agenda
your Prime Minister acknowledged the fact that Balochistan will be discussed, and you backtracked on that.
Zaki, there is no backtracking. We have not yet decided on what we are going to discuss. After the two foreign secretaries have met, only then that point will be resolved.
So let the foreign
General
secretaries
Mehta,
meet.
may I just ask you something? General Mehta, you're saying that you have not decided what to discuss or what should be the priority, but at this stage, shouldn't security cooperation be the priority?
No, the point is there are two main issues. One is the question of terrorism, the cross-border terrorism. The Director of National Intelligence in the United States, testifying before the US Congress last week, made a categorical statement saying that Pakistan has been unable and is unwilling to rein in the terrorist groups that target India because Pakistan considers these, and they mentioned the Afghan Taliban also, as strategic assets. So that's a statement not being made by an Indian. It's a statement being made by the Director of National Intelligence of the United States, the most powerful intelligence chief. Now, returning to the agenda, as far as the question of cross-border terrorism is concerned, that's India's priority. Pakistan wants discussion on Kashmir. Pakistan wants discussion on water issues. Pakistan wants, as we've just heard from Mr. Akram Zaki, to discuss our presence in Afghanistan and our allegedly anti-Baluchistan, anti-Pakistan activities being carried out from Afghanistan. Now,
Okay, I just want to ask Arati Jarash, I just want to bring her into the conversation. Now, isn't there a point in the fact that at the moment in Afghanistan, which is a neighbor to both India and Pakistan, there's one of the biggest military operations ongoing against the Taliban since 2001. And when India is seen as one of the biggest allies of the US in the region, doesn't that make India more vulnerable for that kind of attack? It certainly made Pakistan more vulnerable for that kind of attack since it's cooperating militarily with the US.
Yes, of course it does. I mean, there's no question. I mean, I think that there is a very strong, sort of nexus that runs between Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and, certain sort of Pakistan-based groups. And, they are targeting anybody who seems to be an ally of the United States in the, operations in Afghanistan. Of course, India is not involved in the operations in Afghanistan. India's involvement is largely humanitarian, reconstruction, rebuilding, and, so on. So we're helping to build the Afghan parliament, we're helping to train, government sort of employees, and we're helping to build roads and highways and bridges. So we're not involved in the military operations. But yes, I think that there is an attempt to try to scare India away from Afghanistan.
Okay.
That's why, as you know, the Indian embassy has been targeted twice already in Kabul. The Indian embassy in Kabul has been the target of two separate bomb blasts.
Surely. And my last question would be now to Akram Zaki. I mean, several officials, whether it's in India or in the US, have been hinting that Al-Qaeda and its allies are trying to ignite a war between Pakistan and India. Now, do you think is that likely, or there is a realization really in the leadership, both in Islamabad and in New Delhi, that really they need to stick to talks because that's what's happening behind the scenes?
Well, I'm sorry to say that there has never been a statement from Pakistan that we will plan an attack on India or we will want to fight India. But India's own commander-in-chief, the last one before retiring, came out with a beautiful theory that he wants to prepare India for fighting China and Pakistan
I was talking
simultaneously.
about the militant groups trying to ignite a war between the two countries.
The militant groups are being crushed in Pakistan. Pakistan army is holding operations against the Taliban and other crackdown on every city.
Okay.
If you have seen the activities of our army over the last few months, you must give credit to Pakistan for fighting terrorism and for making sacrifices rather than blaming Pakistan.
And surely it seems that the fight will go on for a long time, whether it is for the Pakistani government or the Indian government. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of this show, so I'd really like to thank my guests, General Ashok Mehta, Arati Jarash, and Akram Zaki. And thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Inside Story. We welcome your comments and suggestions. Please email them to us at insidestory@aljazeera.net. Goodbye for now.